I got an offer from Morgan Stanley Dean Witter for a very generous offer for a young 20-year-old. And I walked away from the very enticing financial offer to move to Los Angeles completely broke. And I didn't know anyone. And I wrote letters to casting directors, a handwritten postcard that said, "Hey, I'm Aimee G. Your Mexican Puerto Rican is ready to rumble." And I have to say, I would say 3 weeks later, I got a call to come in and audition for a movie, and I got a very small role. And a week later, I was on set with Jennifer Aniston and John C. Reilly in my first movie. And since then, I've had a very blue-collar career where I started out with one line and then two lines.
Hey everybody, Scott here, and with me, the lovely, talented director, producer, writer, dancer, actor, comedic actor, and the #1 Latina golfing celebrity that I know, Aimee Garcia.
Oh, wow.
How about that
what an
for a
intro.
build-up?
That's pretty good. You're a very good hype man. I'm like, am I? I don't know. I'm like, I haven't. Okay. But
Yeah, okay,
I'll
but
just
keep going, Scott. You can keep going.
Go on. Go on.
Exactly. So, you know, when someone would say, define Aimee Garcia, is that an easy thing to do?
I would say goofball.
So that's just one word definition for you, or something that someone would say, because I always say that too. I'm a goofball or I'm a knucklehead, and people go, yeah, you are. Yeah. And I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
For you, because you have such a diversity to you, and it's all pending on different conversations. So the truth be told, Aimee and I have spent some time together socially. So I've seen you sober and not sober. Your stories when not sober are really funny because they go way off, you know. And when you're not, they are absolutely deep and heartfelt. So you have that ebb and flow to me of someone who speaks from their heart, very passionate about what you do. I think that's you're a passionate person. So I think that's a good way to define you.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I am. I do have my heart on my sleeve. And yes, I am Puerto Rican. So, you know, I think it's part of our makeup. We are very passionate people. And that's why we talk so loud. We're not mad at each other. We're just passionate.
So give me the breakdown. Your mom is from Mexico, correct? Mm-hmm. And your dad's from Puerto Rico. Correct. So the difference in the persona between Puerto Rico and that background, Mexico, that background, is there lots of similarities, lots of nuances that you have been, as you've grown and now you're, as an adult, you're seeing things differently through a different lens. What do you see differently there?
Well, definitely family is very important on both sides. Right. I think on the Puerto Rican side and on the Mexican side, family is everything. I would say my Puerto Rican side is very musical, but then, you know, so is my Mexican side. Like they sing, they play instruments. I remember my grandfather's answering machine would be a song. He'd be like, Puerto Rico, madre de santos, santre de madre, espero que te veo aquí, you know, and then he'd be like, hello, you have reached the Garcias, you know. So I'm like, Gramps, I don't think you have to sing for 5 minutes and then say hello, leave a message. Like, but that, you know, you do you. So I think on both sides, musicality and dance and food and family is very important. You know, Mexico's really big, right? So northern Mexico has a different temperature, different climate, different food, different types of people. Coastal Mexico, same. Mexico City is one of the tallest cities in the world. A lot of people don't know that. It's actually even snowed there. So the people from Mexico City are very different than the people from Veracruz or the people from the Yucatan or the people from Chihuahua. And I think, you know, Puerto Ricans, it's Caribbean. So they're just, what I love about Puerto Ricans is they're so confident in their bodies. It doesn't matter what shape they are. They are walking with confidence and
Swagger.
saying, you want, you swagger. And you're like, yeah, I do want it. Like you're, so I love their unapologetic kind of vibe.
Right.
So and Mexicans, I think, tend to be like a little bit more reserved, at least in my family. So I think there's a lot of overlap, but definitely the Caribbean feel is very different than the kind of cosmopolitan, municipal, Mexico City kind of vibe.
Your mom went to Northwestern, right?
Hmm.
And she and your dad was in the military.
No, actually,
He wasn't.
my grandfather. No, my grandfather was in the military. He was in the army.
Okay.
And my dad, had brothers. They were kind of, shuffled around everywhere. And that's what brought them to Chicago. There was a fort there that my grandfather was based out of. But yeah, my mom is
That's what I
from
was going to say.
Mexico.
How did you go from, your parents being from multicultural, regardless
Mhm,
of the same language, right? Spanish,
mhm.
but English as well.
Right, right.
Settling in Chicago, I was going to say, how did they come up with Chicago?
Yeah, so my father was born had very humble beginnings. In basically a trailer park in Puerto Rico. They didn't have indoor plumbing. He would have to go to the bathroom outside.
Wow.
And he said that when he was a little kid, he was scared that he would fall through the cracks because he was so small. And, they went there. And then my grandfather was based in France. So then my dad claims that his first language is French, although I think that's questionable. And then they moved to Fort Sheridan, which is in the Chicago area, and that's what landed him in the Midwest. And then my mom was born in Mexico and got her schooling in Mexico, also from humble beginnings, but education was really important in her family. And then she had a fork in the road, and they said you can have a really comfortable life here in Mexico as a dentist, or you could take the harder track and go to orthodontic school at Northwestern in Chicago. And so she chose the harder track. And I really admire her because it's hard enough to go to grad school, but she had to record the class because it was her second language, write the class down by hand,
Wow.
and then study them. And so she jokes that she was the most popular girl in her class. She's one of two women. She's the first Latina to graduate Northwestern's orthodontic school. And she remains best friends with the other woman who was from Thailand. They're besties to this day. So they have a very serendipitous kind of
That's amazing.
journey. Yeah. Yeah. And then their first date was at a Cubs game.
Is that right?
Bringing it back to
So
yeah,
you
they
have
dated.
to be a Cubs fan regardless, right?
Oh, there's no option. There's no option. Yeah, they got married 3 weeks after dating. 21 days they got married.
Shotgun.
Shotgun.
My
Mm-hmm.
parents met on a blind date at a New York Rangers hockey game. And to this day,
Really
I'm a diehard Rangers fan because of
yeah. I love that. Well,
Yeah.
that's what I say about the Cubs. Always, I have some. Oh, there we go.
I like
I've
all
had
of
the
those
honor.
little figurines behind you, by the way.
Yeah, I wonder if I still have the Cubs sent me because I threw out the first pitch a couple times or a few times and sang led the seventh inning stretch. So I've gotten some goodies
I
from
didn't
the
give you
Cubs, but
props, by the way, in my long intro of you. You're a very talented singer. We're going to get to that in a second, but you do have, you're a dancer, but you're singing and you have some tremendous success there. So, forgive me for not throwing that as well into that intro.
oh, well, it's funny. I just am a shower singer, if you will. And then I remember the Dodgers asked if I would sing the national anthem. And my first instinct was hard no, absolutely not. I don't sing. I'm not a professional. I'm a professional dancer or started out that way. But, so there's some muscle memory there. But as far as singing, no. And then I thought, you know what? what a cool opportunity to sing the national anthem. It's not about you. It's
Right.
about honoring your country. And I said, you know what? This terrifies me. I'm completely paralyzed in fear. And every bone in my body wants to say no, but I will never grow if I keep saying no to things that scare me.
Right.
So I said yes. And much like golf, I just buckled down, met with a vocal coach, and my heart was beating outside of my chest. And here's the best part. So I sing it a cappella. I don't know why I made this decision. It's hard enough to sing it. I decided to sing it a cappella, and it wasn't great. And even on YouTube, I mean, you can see it on YouTube. People are commenting like, it's not that good. But then after I sang it so simply. I wasn't like, all like Kelly Clarkson fireworks or Christina Aguilera.
Right.
And I just sang very straight. And I have to tell you, when I finished and I went to my seats with my family and I would go get like a hot dog or whatever, people would say, hey, thank you for reminding us what that song's about. We loved it. And so I thought, you know what? Maybe it wasn't like super on key but it moved people and it reminded people what the song was about.
Right.
It's just a tribute to a country. And so I was happy with that, and since then I've gotten a little better. But
now, did they give you the jersey when you sang that national anthem?
Yes, they did. I have it in my closet.
Here's a good embarrassing story for you. Friends of mine, great guy, like a mentor of mine in broadcasting forever, Ed Gorin, invites me to go to a Dodgers Giants game, seated like row 1, seat 1. And I'm like having a great time. And you're right there because you just go right inside and there's a suite, right? Like you did.
Right.
And you go get your food. So I'm making this hot fudge, they have soft serve ice cream and they have the little Dodger helmet. So I take the Dodger helmet, right? Candy. I'm like sweet tooth. I'm like happy as a lark, make my little hot fudge sundae. And there's a guy, I'm clueless. So I don't know who it is. He's wearing the Dodger jersey. I'm not thinking anything of it. Like, oh, you're going to sing the national anthem. He's just there wearing a Dodger jersey. I'm thinking he's a Dodger fan. And he looks at me and he goes, hey, you're really good. How did you do that? And I said, well, years of experience. I'm a dad. I could do these things. So I hand it to him. I go, here, you do this. I'll make another one for myself. He starts eating. He goes, I'm going to watch you do it so I can learn how to do it. I'm like, all right.
Oh, wow.
I get it all set, make my own, say goodbye to him. And I go sit down. I start eating my ice cream in the seat. And sure enough, they go, and now, ladies and gentlemen, to sing the national anthem, Kendrick Lamar. Clueless Scott. It's like, right? So no idea. It was Kendrick Lamar because he had like sunglasses on. I didn't know who it was, right? And I wasn't like going to be, hey, who are you? I didn't know.
Right. And they're chameleons.
Right,
you can't.
So I go back in like 5th inning, 6th inning, and I want to get something else to eat. Like you went for that hot dog. I wanted to get one of those hot pretzels. So I'm there and I hear my name called, hey, ice cream man. And it's Kendrick. He was like wanting another hot fudge sundae.
I love that. See, he's always going to associate you with pure candy joy.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be at.
Yeah,
I feel.
Right place, right time. But it was fun. But I love that they give you guys the jersey and you sing. And I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
What a great experience.
It's a great stadium. They call it the friendly confines because it's one of the smallest.
They call every stadium that, by the way.
Oh, do they? Oh, I thought it was
the friendly confines of Petco Park.
Oh, well, I'm going to go with we did it first.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Who knows? Maybe
it should be friendly confines of Wrigley Field.
Exactly.
That works because it's an original, one of the oldest stadiums, if not the oldest. Either that or Fenway Park. One of the two are the oldest. Right. I forget.
I love it. It just has a very homey feel to it, and it's nice. You're like, I can catch a home run here. You know what I mean?
So for you, did you play sports growing up?
I didn't play sports. I was more of a professional dancer. I started acting so young that I couldn't really commit to sports because I would be, doing a commercial or some theater part or in a class with like all adults as a 6-year-old. I tease my parents. I'm like, guys, was that legal? Like, aren't there some child labor laws? We're like, how am I working since I was 5 years old? You know what I mean? But I really didn't have the time to really dedicate to sports. I loved our basketball team. I went to high school, a high school that was predominantly all boys because they had been boys for decades. So when it came to like the pom squad or the dance troupe, I was part of the founding members of that because it didn't exist because
there's all
all boys
boys. How is that?
in the high
Talk
school.
about that for a second. You go to an all boys
Yeah.
school. Was there pushback from the boys when you got there?
Oh yeah, they hated us. They were like, "Gosh, now we can't just fart whenever we wanted to. We're gonna have to shower." Ugh. And I mean, they warmed up to us, and we ended up
You're
going to 4
girls.
proms a year, mind you. But my high school experience was all seniors were boys, all juniors were boys, all sophomores were boys, and half the freshmen were boys. So 100 girls and 800 boys. And so my developmental years were spent amongst men. Like I was so used to being one girl in a group of 10 guys
Wow.
or being the only girl. And I mean, it served me well when I came out to Hollywood because I felt the same way. I felt very comfortable in that
Right.
space. And yeah, I remember at one point I was like adjusting myself because I saw all my guy friends kind of adjust down there, and my mom was horrified. She's like, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm adjusting." And she's like, "Oh, adjusting what?" And then she put me in how to be a lady class so that I wouldn't, turn into a dude. But I was one of the boys, and most of my friends were guys. And even when I started, having girlfriends later on, they were like, "Oh, we need a guy's perspective. Aimee, if he met me on my, and so I don't know. I just always,
You think you could think
I
like a dude when it's needed.
yes, yes. And when it's not needed, like I feel very much in a way, like I grew up with, tons of brothers.
Right.
And so, there you just kind of, you can hang.
The spelling of your
So
name, Aimee,
yeah.
Aimee,
Hmm.
right? My wife, Amy. How did
Yes.
the derive at Aimee?
Oh, I'll tell you how. My parents were clueless when they had me. They did not know that anything about children. And I love them to death. They're great parents. They should have had more kids. I adore them. I spend every minute I can, I fly to Chicago to see them. I love them. But they did not know anything about children. So they had no name planned out for me. Like my dad went to run errands while my mom's water broke. He was like, "I just have to deposit this check real quick." And there was like a blizzard in Chicago. And my mom's like, "This baby is about to come out. You can't run errands right now." Like they were like young and clueless, So they get to the hospital barely.
Right.
I almost am born in the car. My dad almost has to deliver me because it's like a Chicago blizzard. He is, they're racing, and the nurse was like, "What's her name?" And like, we didn't think about it. So, we don't know. And so they handed them a book, and AI was on the first page. And so they're like, "Let's go with that. That sounds good." So this is not like they're sipping some wine, like nesting and putting no, I literally, they're going to kill me when I say it, but I don't even think I had like a proper crib. I think they put me kind of in like, I came out great. Okay. Like I said, they're great parents, but I think they, a drawer with some blankets
Come on. They didn't put you in a drawer. You're like, yeah, it was like the utensils and then Aimee.
Hey, I sleep like a champ. I get 8 to 9 hours. I never have
It
issues
doesn't matter
sleeping.
where
So
you give you a drawer, you're perfect.
that's right. I will nestle into that drawer. So that was the birth of my name. It was called. I came out. They were clueless. Needed something for the birth certificate. Was handed a book. pointed to page one.
Wow. It would be, yeah. It's great that it was AI. It was AF, like after. They name you something like after or alter. Wow.
Yeah, I
Aimee.
guess it could have been worse. I like my name. In French, it means aimé. It means to love, to be loved.
Right.
So it's nice to name that means to be loved.
Exactly. When you were a little girl, when you were like 4, you had said that you almost died.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what happened?
I did. I flatlined at 4 years old. I was in the hospital for 21 days at Lurie's Children's Hospital in Chicago. The little girl next to me didn't make it.
Oh, wow.
And I remember my dad would pick her up and sing to her because no one came to visit her, and it was heartbreaking. And you remember things when you're 4. Like, I'm sure if anyone listening to this, you remember.
Right.
And like smells and images. And I remember not being able to breathe on my own. I had pneumonia, which was water in my lungs. And so I had tubes up my nose. And I remember it being so uncomfortable and rubbing up against the cartilage in my nose. And I kept wanting to get them out, but I couldn't. And I remember consoling my mom. She was obviously a hot mess. And I was like, it's going to be okay, which just made her cry more. Like, could you imagine a little 4-year-old being like, it's going to be okay?
Yeah, right.
And I flatlined, and I guess for whatever reason, it wasn't my time. And so I remember feeling very lucky that I had time, because I remember seeing the girl next to me for 21 days and then not. And that really stuck with me, and it really has shaped me as an adult, where I am so grateful for every day because I am on borrowed time.
Right.
And I tell people I love them. If something scares me, I still do it anyway. I try to live a life of no regrets, because I always say, if someone gives you $1,000 bills, would you tear it up? No. But if someone gives you 1,000 minutes, we tear those up all the time.
Right.
And doesn't matter how rich you are, how famous you are, how talented you are, how beautiful you are, what a good person you are, we all gonna die. And when you flatlined at 4, it just gives you that perspective that we are all bounded by mortality. And I think that there's something so beautiful that every single human has in common.
For you, was that experience, were your parents, your mom in particular, more guarded or more sheltering you from taking opportunities?
Oh, yes. They almost lost their 4-year-old kid.
Right.
And they were so careful with me. I mean, I am very germophobic, so I won't I don't believe in like the 5-second rule in the kitchen. There's certain things where I remember the moment that I started being afraid of turbulence. Like, my mom was just very, we were flying to Mexico, and I was reading very calmly, and the plane was shaking, and my mom screamed and grabbed my arm, and her scream scared me. And so I associated turbulence with fear, even though it was the scream that scared me. And so, yeah, I feel like I have a very strong instinct to survive. And I try to, I'm very risk averse, even though I chose one of the most, I think one of the toughest business. My friend the other day, who's a very successful actor, he's like, Aimee, do you realize that you're top 1% in the world in being a professional full-time actor? Like that. And I said, where are you getting these facts? Is that true? So obviously I do take risks. I mean, I feel like in Vegas, in this industry where nothing really makes sense. It's the upside down. But I am my parents were just very loving, very careful with me.
Right.
They would, they would like walk me to school when they could. They just, they were, and rightfully so, right? I mean, when your kid almost dies, you tend to probably overcompensate on the other end.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, but because you're a child actor,
yeah,
so you're kind of like out there too. I mean, obviously they could take you to auditions and what have you, but
Yeah.
what give me a
Yeah,
great memory of like a childhood acting scenario that was fun, that again, as an adult, you look back and you go, that was such a fun thing.
Oh, sure. I completely know one. I did a McDonald's commercial with Michael Jordan when he was on top of the world.
Wow.
Uh, he was still playing and they were having a great season and they were unstoppable. And it was, Pippen and him and Phil Jackson and Steve Kerr. It was just like the all-star team where you have this superstar, you have this GOAT,
Right.
but then you also have this sum is greater than like the parts are greater than the sum of them. And it was just this magical team. Like they could not miss. He could not miss a 3-pointer. Steve Kerr could not miss a 3-pointer. It was just awesome. So here we are. We're shooting this commercial. We're at McDonald's. Michael Jordan does not, I guess I can say this now. I'm sure it's, statute of limitations is gone. He does not like Big Macs. He had a spit bag. So they would film him slow motion eating this juicy burger that literally has food stylists working on this burger for 45 minutes. They put it in Jordan's hands. He's slow biting into the burger. Cut. He's spitting out. The only thing that Jordan liked or likes, is he's still with us. The only thing that Jordan likes is the strawberry milkshake. He loved their strawberry milkshakes.
Okay.
And I remember with him for 8 hours. So as I must have been like between 10 and 12, and I was spending 8 hours with a living legend. And we're talking to him, we're asking questions. And finally, by like the 4th hour, I'm sitting next to Michael Jordan in complete silence because I have no other questions to ask the man. And we're looking at each other and we're chilling.
That's because you're like 10 to 12 years old.
Yeah, I didn't have much material,
like,
much
how did
references.
you learn to tie your shoes?
Yeah. I mean, but even at a young age, I knew. I looked up to Michael Jordan. We're chilling there in silence, and I'm thinking, this is the 4th hour I'm sitting here with the living legend. I'm never going to forget this moment, and I'm never going to forgive myself for not asking more questions. I'm drawing a blank. I remember having that thought, but it was so fun, and he was golfing, so he wanted to wrap up production because he was taking his private plane to go golf.
Yeah.
And he could not have been more gracious and more courteous, and he was just great, so it's on YouTube. Like it's fun. You can't blink or you'll miss me, but it really, helped me pay for school and it kind of launched my career. I did commercials with Sammy Sosa. I did commercials with Charles Barkley. And because Spanish is my first language, I would do McDonald's commercials in Spanish and English. So I'd be like, you guys should eat French fries. And then I'd say, deben de comer papitas fritas. So it was really fun. And to your point of parental support, my dad would just drive me to audition after audition. And he was there the whole time. And he really was my guardian angel. I mean, he is just a big kid himself and wanted to be a Disney animator. And he's the realization of the American dream, that guy, like from trailer park in Puerto Rico to, successful architect in Chicago. But he was just my ride or die during those years. And I'll never forget it. We had a great time,
I mean, an amazing reflection there. You went to Northwestern following your mom's footsteps, but took a different path. You were triple major, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
How did you decide on Northwestern, and what were your other thoughts of where you would want to go to school?
When you are the only daughter of a Mexican family, there's no option. Like if they were grooming me, I know that has a negative connotation. I mean, they were taking me to the lake. They were, having me wear purple. They were saying, go Wildcats. This was early on, just like early on Cubs indoctrination. Right. This was early on Western Wildcat indoctrination. And also I'm very close to my family. I'm very family oriented, and I saw them every Sunday all 4 years at Northwestern. And I knew that that would have been possible if I went to school close to home.
Right.
I also applied to a few schools in California and a few schools on the East Coast. I got into all of them. And I just said, you know what? I love Chicago. I'm born, raised Chicago. I love this city. Frank Sinatra called Chicago a big city with the heart of a small town. I think that's dead on. It's a cleaner New York. And it's just very grounded, salt of the earth people. It's got great food, great theater, great architecture, great sports teams. I actually like the seasons. I think that you can count the sunny and 72 days on two hands, but you appreciate those 10 days when you're from the Midwest, not to, scrape the snow off of your car. But I loved it. And so I thought Northwestern, but ultimately, obviously it's my decision. And I say my in quotes. I wanted a place where I could still do Chicago theater. I could still do commercials. I could still see my family, but I could also have a very well-rounded education. Right. So my dad always said, you are going to be a freelancer, so you need to know how to make 1 month of money last 6. And that's why I majored in econ, because he said, whatever you decide, I feel like you're going to be a freelancer. So you need to know how to balance your checkbook. You need to know how to invest your money. And let me tell you something. This is my dad. He's like, how do millionaires go broke? They spend $1 million in one. I'm like, which it's deep, and I loved it. I was able to do so many things at Northwestern. I was an economics major. I was a journalism major. I really wanted to work for National Geographic. I wanted to be Oprah Winfrey. I wanted to be the Latina, Oprah. And I was also a major in French. So I was a triple major. I was in the dance group, which was called Graffiti Dancers, and I loved it. It was just a very well-rounded experience. And like you said, to your point of diversity, I have very much like left brain and right brain interests. And Northwestern to me was the perfect environment to mold both.
Right. A great journalism school. Most people will ask, I went to Cronkite School at Arizona State, which is a great journalism broadcasting school. It's always, to me, it's always been Northwestern journalism, Missouri journalism, Columbia journalism, USC now does broadcasting and journalism. So Syracuse broadcasting, but Northwestern was one of those schools that's always harder to get into than a lot of the other schools I just mentioned. It's obviously Columbia's Ivy League is, and Northwestern is the Ivy League of the Midwest, right? I guess is the best way to describe it. For you, with those majors, you did diversify coming out of school from acting, and you got into the world of finance. Did you do it in Chicago? Did you go to New York? Where did that take place?
So when I graduated, a little kind of rando, I graduated Northwestern broke because
you're a college student.
I had used all. Yeah. What's that?
Because you're a college student.
College student. Yeah, exactly. And so I had used the money. So my parents, thank God they were decent, wonderful parents. My dad, put all the money I made as a kid in a college fund. Like, thank God for that. And so I used that to pay for school. And then Norman Lear, of all people, actually put me under a holding deal and paid for my junior and senior year.
Is that right?
Like, he basically paid so that no one else would take me. But like years later, I saw him and I said, hey, Norman, you paid to take me off the market so that no one else could have me, but like no one else was asking. You know what I mean? Right. So he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, you must be very good because that deal is very bad. And I said, but thank you. You paid for my junior and senior year at Northwestern. So when I left Northwestern, it was a little bleak. I had done acting since I was 5 years old. And my parents always said, the second you don't have fun, you can quit. Right. But I loved it. I loved it. But then I was like I said, you know what? I've been doing this since I was 5 years old. I fell in love with acting when I first saw a performance at 2. I never looked back. I feel like I have to date other careers. I can't just have found my career at 2 years old. That's, right. How often does that happen? Well, so then I moved to Brooklyn and I lived in a nook. I didn't even have my own room. I
You
literally
are
had to put up
so
a shower.
familiar with sleeping in a drawer that shouldn't have been a problem for you.
It felt like
Yeah,
home. It
exactly.
felt comforting,
You go, it's a nook.
familiar.
It's a leg up.
Yes, yeah. Like if I was a dog, I would be that dog that can just nestle up anywhere. I can make. Yeah, I see a lot of nooks, a lot of opportunity for nooks. But this was an actual nook where I couldn't even extend my arms all the way. It was that small, and it was so expensive. It was New York, and it was a little dicey. The area we lived in at the time, not now. Now it's like filled with condos and very trendy.
Right.
But back then, it was a little touch and go. And I lived with three other girls, and I lived in a nook, and I loved it. I was broke, and I was so happy. I would go to happy hour. I would, just volunteer so I could see plays for free. I just figured out how to do New York broke. And I had the time of my life. And I always say New York is great if you're broke or a billionaire. And I don't mean like a multimillionaire. I mean like a friggin' billionaire.
Right. Because everything could be very
a
little pricey. Yeah.
So exactly. So I moved to Brooklyn and I worked as a mutual fund analyst for an investment survey company. And I
In
would
Brooklyn?
interview.
So you stayed in Brooklyn, or is that in the city?
Well, that was in the city.
Right.
Yeah. So I would commute. I couldn't afford to live in Manhattan.
Right.
So I would commute in. I had a 9 to 5. I called, mutual fund managers and asked them how they thought, the funds were looking. And I would write 100-page synopsis on the short-term and long-term performance of the mutual fund. And I was off at work at 5, didn't have any money, but you can have your street food. And I really had a great time. And after about a year, I said, you know what? I can't get acting out of my mind. I can't stop thinking about my first love.
Right.
And then at that point, I got an offer from Morgan Stanley Dean Witter for a very generous offer for a young 20-year-old. And I walked away from the very enticing financial offer to move to Los Angeles completely broke. And I didn't know anyone. And I wrote letters to casting directors, a handwritten postcard that said, "Hey, I'm Aimee G. Your Mexican Puerto Rican is ready to rumble." And I have to say, I would say 3 weeks later, I got a call to come in and audition for a movie, and I got a very small role. And a week later, I was on set with Jennifer Aniston and John C. Reilly in my first movie. And since then, I've had a very blue collar career where I started out with one line and then 2 lines. I don't have this like beautiful face that was like recognized DJing and then put in a movie the next day. Like that was not my journey. That's not my path. I really just I call myself like a blue chip, it's just one step in front of the other. And it wasn't a sexy trajectory. It was just a very gradual one. And decades later, here I am.
Now, dance has always been a part of you. How have you maintained that, or have you?
Well, I love to dance socially. So I'll go with my girlfriend and dance salsa. If I'm at a concert, I was just at one, I dancing. I did take some dance classes when I first moved to LA. I just did a movie last year where I got to dance, and it was a really fun Christmas movie. And I did my own singing, my own dancing. And I trained with a girlfriend of mine. Her name is Allison Falk. And she does all the choreography for Magic Mike, and she travels with Pink, and she's worked with the top. And so that was really fun because I had 3 months of intense dancing with professional dancers in New York.
Right.
And so it was a kid in a candy store and loved it. But I should dance more. I'm actually writing more than I'm dancing these days. And but I do miss it. I love it. And it's a great way to stay in shape. I mean, I do work out every day just because it's my form of therapy. But I should get back into it more. But it was also very hard. I mean, I was a professional dancer at 7 years old. And so I have a little bit of love-hate relationship with the classical kind of ballet of it all. So I think I like to find the joy in it socially, because it's very, very high disciplined when you're so young.
When you just mentioned your writing, who's AJ Mendez? What is she to you?
My wifey. I call her my wife. I actually just texted her. I said, "Hey, this is my plan. I'm going to Germany for a Comic-Con in 3 days. I'll be back on this day. I want to tell you my schedule because you're my wife." She's like, "Oh, I love it." So AJ Mendez this is her figure, by the way. I'm sure your listeners know who she is more than know who I am. She is a absolute unicorn. She is she came from very humble beginnings, was homeless a lot of her childhood, and ended up becoming one of the top female wrestlers in the world in the WWE.
Right.
And then she ended up writing, I'm wondering if I have it, she ended up writing Crazy is My Superpower, and it ended up becoming a New York Times bestseller. So
wow.
She is my partner in crime, my ride or die, my producing partner. But to backtrack a little bit, we met on Twitter, like any great love story, which I guess is now called X. But her husband, CM Punk, is a huge Cubs fan. The Cubs is like the spoke of this wheel, I feel. I feel like it's like the hub that brings everything together.
Keeps it going for you.
Going for me. So CM Punk is a huge Cubs fan. Like, he is a hardcore Cubs fan.
Right.
And when the Rockets, who, own the Cubs, were generous enough to get a suite at Dodger Stadium for Chicago actors. So it was like Vince Vaughn, Bob Newhart, CM Punk, myself, and we met and we took a picture and he tweeted it out, and everyone kept saying that I was AJ Mendez because they said we were twins. And so I kept saying, "Oh my God, AJ and Phil," which is, his real name. He goes by CM Punk. And AJ and Phil. I'm like, who is AJ? And then she's like, "Wow, that's not me in that picture. You can recognize me from my snaggle tooth." And then I said, "You had me at snaggle." And we started just tweeting back and forth. We found out we're both Puerto Rican. Another word for Puerto Rican is Boricua. So we thought, oh my gosh, we're Boricuas. And then when I went to Chicago to visit my family, I said, "Phil, I'm kind of obsessed with your wife. And I know I don't know her, but I need to meet her. Please give her my number, because I don't want her to think, I'm being too forward." We met at a coffee shop. Love at first sight. And we started writing comic books together. We wrote the Glow comics together, which I think I have somewhere. We wrote Dungeons and Dragons together. And we just started writing. We wrote a movie that came out last year together about samurai, and we wanted female forward. We're like, well, why can't we see female samurais just be badass? I'm like, everybody likes to see badass, babes. So we wrote this movie from the female samurai perspective, and it ended up doing really well. And then we just started this production company together called Scrappy Heart Productions to tell narratives that we didn't have as kids, and to really capture the American Latin, because we consider ourselves all American. She's
Right.
from Jersey, I'm from Chicago, but we're also bicultural because we grew up in Latino households. So we really cover the gamut, where I speak Spanish, she doesn't. I'm Puerto Rican and Mexican, she's Puerto Rican. But we found that we had all of these stories that we hadn't seen in media. And so we thought, you know what? Let's just create the change we want to see. And we started this company, and it's been a wonderful partnership. And she makes me better at writing. And we just really push each other. Like,
Now, how often do you guys talk?
Well, we talk a lot. Under normal circumstances, we talk. If we're doing a project together, we talk every day.
Right.
And then 20-minute conversation ends up being, 3 hours long, and we're like kids in a candy store. We're like, and then the dragon comes. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's so good. And then it's like when kids are playing like story time, and then our stomachs are growling, and we say we should eat. Yeah, and then we'll get like an offer. We celebrate every offer we have with frozen yogurt. We have to do it, and so we talk a lot. I mean, obviously, right now it's unusual circumstances with the strike and everything, so we don't talk as much, but I mean, I literally just texted her 30 minutes ago right before I got on with you, and I'm going to see her next week. So we talk a lot.
A lot.
We started.
Yeah. For you, you also told a story. So I know this, but I'd like you to tell the story about flying on a private jet with Lady Gaga.
Oh, yes.
I love because I love the way you bring up the accents and stuff.
Yes. So Steph is her name, and obviously she goes by Lady Gaga.
Right.
And at the time, a friend of mine was dating her.
Okay.
And we had done a show together in San Francisco, and we became friends, and he started dating her. And he said, "Hey, we're doing this fundraiser for paramedics. Do you want to come up and I'm going to be a part of it, my buddy?" And I said, "Yes, of course, I'll support." So I go up there, and I meet, and he's like, "Steph is coming." And I love her. I'm a big fan. I think she's wickedly talented. And I call my parents. I'm like, I'm going to meet Lady Gaga. Like, I'm really nervous. I'm geeking out. I mean, what do I say to her? What if I don't know what to say? Like, I'm already getting nervous. And my dad's like, just be yourself, and, just be yourself. And I said, okay. So I meet her, and I say, "Hi, I'm Aimee." And she goes, "Hi, I'm Steph." And I go, "Hi, I'm Aimee." And she says, "I know who you are. I love your work." Because I guess she must have watched the show that her boyfriend at the time was on.
Right.
And so finally we were talking, we're hanging out, we go to the event, and 10 o'clock turns into 11 o'clock, 11 o'clock turns into midnight, midnight turns, and I'm like, I gotta go because I have a flight. And she's like, "Oh, just fly. She's like, "Oh, just come back with us." And so I thought, oh, okay. And so it's 2 a.m. So I'm thinking, I'm going to like be in the back seat of their car. And around 2:30 in the morning, I get a text, and it says, "These are the cell numbers and the names of the pilots." And I thought, wow. And then she's like, "See you in the morning." And I thought, pilots, oh, this is going to be a plane situation. And you know me with turbulence, no bueno. So I'm thinking, oh boy, okay, just remain calm. It's going to be great. Enjoy this experience. I show up, I roll up with my little suitcase. I see this plane. It's a beautiful plane. It seats probably, I want to say like 10 people, but it's just the 3 of us. And I'm thinking, this plane's going to go down. This is what happens. These are the types of planes with famous people that go down. And when it does, it's going to say, I know this sounds terrible, but this is literally what's going on in my mind. I said, it's going to say Lady Gaga, dies in plane crash. And then in small writing, also on board, her boyfriend and his friend. And I'm thinking, this is it. This makes me really uncomfortable. I don't like, and she could tell I was very nervous. So the plane takes off. Oh, and then we get on the plane. And at the time she was on the cover of Rolling Stone. Remember when she was basically naked with like meat packs all over her.
I do remember
steaks. So we walk on the plane, and she picks up the Rolling Stone of herself. She's like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Oh, this is very meta." So I sit down, I put on my seatbelt, I make sure to make eye contact with the pilots because I want to make sure they know what's up. Like I want them to see their passengers in the eye. I still sometimes do it. I'll get on the plane, I'm like, "Excuse me, do you guys have children? Okay, let's just remember these children that we want to get back to them. Thank you." I'm putting my life in your hands. So I talked to the pilots for a little bit.
You don't think that freaks them out or anything,
Well, I want them to come
right
correct.
Here, pal.
You know what
right
I
here.
mean?
I want to see it.
Right here. And I'm sure they're telling the flight attendant, they're like 27D, keep an eye out for that one.
Put her in the drawer. Put her in the drawer. She fits. She likes being up top in the overhead.
Exactly. I probably would fit in the overhead compartment. I like to call it fun size.
Yeah.
So I'm on the plane and the plane's taking off. I have my seatbelt on. Steph does not. She's messing with me. She's offering me mimosas. My palms are super sweaty. My heart's racing. And she's like, "Oh, look, no seatbelt." And she's teasing me. And I'm like, oh my God, my stomach, So the whole time I'm just gripping on for dear life. She is having such a fun time. She's enjoying the fact that I'm freaking out. God bless her. And then in the middle of the flight, she says, you have something I don't have. And I'm thinking,
fear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fear. We're however many thousand feet in the air. Lady Gaga, who's also on top of her, she was on top of the world. What could I possibly have that she doesn't have? And she says, you're the emergence of an artist. You could be whatever you want to be. Because once you get to a certain point as an artist, you either have to continue, growing in that space, or you have to completely redefine yourself. But you right now, you could be anything. You're the emergence of an artist. And that was actually a moment that calmed me down. And I thought, what an introspective, generous,
collaborative thing to say.
Like humble thing to say to someone
yes.
who you barely know. And then I went back to freaking out. And in hindsight, I should have just had fun. I should have just had a mimosa. I should have sat down and had
let's do a song together.
I mean, I should have, but it's funny. This happened to me also with Leonardo DiCaprio. I was Michelle Kwan's guest at a Lakers game, and we had golf together. We had done this like charity thing together, and I wasn't a very good golfer, but I just was on her team, and I said I'd never been to a Lakers game, and she's like, "Come with me as my guest." And so, Michelle Kwan, Olympic champion. I mean, here I am, her +1. And I'm not going to say the name because even though I don't, get to see her anymore, she had a crush on a particular singer who was very big at the time. And I was going to be her support system. So she's like, I have a huge crush on him and I don't. And so we, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to talk to him or not. So we go down, when you go to the Lakers game, you go downstairs and there's like treats and stuff. And her crush is talking to Leonardo DiCaprio. I guess they went to the game together. And I am such a loyal friend that I did not say a single word to Leonardo DiCaprio because in the small chance that Michelle Kwan needed me to have her back, I was there. I was going to be there. I was going to be her support system. And I didn't want her to turn around and her guest is talking to Leonardo. So he's looking at me. I'm looking at him. I don't see a single word. Mind you, I screen tested for Romeo and Juliet. Not a lot of people know this back in the day when it was down to 5 people for the role of Juliet. Claire Danes, Natalie Portman, Christina Ricci, Reese Witherspoon, Aimee Garcia. Now,
no kidding.
I did not know I did not know what a screen test was. I put myself on tape in Chicago. Next thing I know, I'm being flown out to screen test. I don't even have hair, makeup. I'm like a kid from Chicago. I don't know what's up. My dad doesn't know what's up. And next thing I know, I'm meeting, Baz Luhrmann and he's talking about it. So anyway, I mean, I had like a fun story that I could have cracked with him. But when I am someone's support system, it could be The Rock. It doesn't matter. If you ask me, I'm very much a woman of my word. If I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. And if you ask me as a friend to do something, I will do it. The world could be crumbling, but it's like a dog. I say, like, if I'm an animal, I would be like a dog. Dogs are loyal, and that's where I kind of freeze a little bit with people, even though I'm very extrovert.
I would guess she got back to the seats with you and she said, why didn't you want to talk to Leonardo DiCaprio? He was wanting to talk to you.
I think she actually did say something like that. I'm like, because you said you had a crush on him and girl code, like chicks before dicks.
Because you have to go and I want to cover this. You were, just so people know, you were my teammate, not just you're a playing partner
Yes.
of mine in Switzerland. Not just, we don't go play golf together here in the United States.
No.
We take our act abroad. We're at the Aimee Masters in Switzerland.
Yes.
And you were very nervous playing in your first Pro-Am. But I am here to say that on the first tee, I stiffened up because I didn't take a swing for an hour. Like an idiot, I didn't warm up. But here's Aimee. She pops the ball down the middle of the fairway. You bomb it out there. And I was so proud of my partner.
Well, I appreciate that. But it wasn't just you. It was also Chase, who I love and adore and have obviously become friends with. But so the story.
Right.
Chase Crawford, yes. Right. So Luke Wilson, who is also there, who's actually a great golfer. Luke Wilson and I are cheering on Chase. And I didn't realize they announced you at the first tee. Like, it's already nerve-wracking enough to do any first tee, even if you're golfing with your buddies on a Saturday morning. But they're like, on the first tee. I don't know why I'm doing a transatlantic accent.
But say, in a British accent, like they're French. You're French. Come on.
Yeah. And they're like, on the first tee, actor Chase Crawford. And Chase is a great golfer. He's a total natural. He's got a great swing. He gets up there and he hits the first drive 5 feet ahead of the men's tee. And he is so charming. He puts his hand above, his and he pretends that it went far. And Luke and I are watching it, and we just turn around. We just about face. We just pivot and pretend that we didn't see that. Cut to our team. Scott, Mr. Like the path here, Mr. Golf himself, Mr. Like he's golfed with every A-lister you could possibly imagine. You have your own show. You're a trailblazer. You change the game in that space. Yeah. Like you're like synonymous with the world of golf. You know everybody. And just you're this wonderful connector. You're like the real deal. You're like Mr. Golf. You get up there, they introduce you, first tee, and not your best swing.
I hit it just as far as Chase.
And I'm like, no, this is not the plan. I'm not supposed to carry this team on myself.
I gave you such bad mojo.
Oh my gosh. So then Luke hits a great one. And then they say, on the first tee, actress Aimee Garcia. Now, at this point, I'm the only woman that has
ever
played in Aimee.
Right.
Ever played. So the photographers don't know that I'm playing by the ladies' tees. So I'm walking confidently to the ladies' tees. My palms are sweaty. My heart is beating out of my chest. I've just seen you bite it. I've seen Chase bite it. I'm like, oh, geez, this is not... the mojo I was expecting. I get up there. Finally, the photographers catch up. They're uninformed that I'm hitting at the ladies' tees. I calm my mind down for a hot second. I say, just play your game. And I put the tee down and I put the ball on the tee and I old man swing it, as I would say, 130 to 150 straight down the fairway. And I was doing cartwheels inside.
Doing your birdie dance, even though we didn't get a birdie yet.
Yes, that's true. Well, I put it out there. I think you have to have positive energy.
So inspiring us to get more birdies. Exactly.
That's right. You got to put things out into the universe.
I don't think I could have found a better playing partner than you. It was fun. We had a great time. We did not win, but we were the most fun group out there.
Yeah, but you said we were last. We weren't last.
No,
we were
in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, I saved my best drive until the last hole. And I was driving it okay with those rentals. But we had so much fun playing and your birdie dance was a lot of fun to play with. And, you're motivated and inspired to be the number one Latina celebrity golfer, which to me, you're way ahead of the pack. I don't think there's anybody close.
Well, maybe actress golfer, because I feel like if we got Shakira in there, we got,
I don't know that name. Never
She's
heard
got
that.
those hips. Now, I do girl crush on her. If she ever needs a teammate, I'm totally available to caddy.
I'm with you.
Or
I'm there too. Are you kidding?
Perfect.
Aimee Garcia, thank you so much for coming on the path here, sharing a little bit about yourself and your family and your history and your gadgets behind you. And I thank you. I look forward to playing a little golf together shortly. And thank you so much. Enjoy
my pleasure. Well, you are so easy to talk to, and I'm so glad you bring all these special people, together. And anytime. And it's my pleasure. I was very flattered. And thank you for, flying me to all these places and making me feel like I can do one of the most challenging sports in the world. It's a good reference point for life, right? It's a game of recovery.
It is. It's not what happened behind you. It's what's going in front of you. Ooh. Exactly. I leave you on a deep note.
I love it. I love it. This was really fun.
Aimee Garcia, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this week's show. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to write us on thepathhere.com to have one of your questions featured on a future episode. You can follow me on Instagram @ScottSavlo. If you want to send us a tweet or follow us on Instagram, it's @thepathhere podcast. Hey, I'm Scott Savlov, and you've been listening to The Path Here.